Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Saturday, March the 16th, 2024. We finish up our week of looking at that gospel passage from last Sunday where the scribe asked Jesus which commandment is first of all, which is the greatest. And Jesus responded, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." And then he said, and a second, or as Matthew's gospel tells us, a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. This combination of Deuteronomy 6:4 and Leviticus 19:18 that basically perfectly sums up the life of faith, loving God and loving neighbor. And of course, I talked in my sermon last Sunday about that passage in 1 John where, if you say you love God and you hate your neighbor, you're a liar because, how could you love the God whom you can't see if you can't love the neighbor who you can see and you can respond to. Came across a very moving story written by Roberta Karchner. She writes, a number of years ago, my husband and I went to Applebee's on our anniversary for a quiet dinner together. It was indeed very quiet because my husband had just been ordered to undergo an MRI, and we knew that the results might change our future forever. Still, she says, we did what old married couples often do. We sat and held hands and talked about everyday kinds of things. We ordered a small dessert to celebrate. However, when we went to pay, the waitress told us that someone had overheard that it was our anniversary and had paid for our dinner. Well, as she goes on, over the next year, we would discover that my husband had a progressive terminal neurological disease. And while we went back to Applebee's one other time, that would be the very last time that we had dinner there together on our anniversary. The following year, he would be vomiting in rehab, and by the year after, he was confined to a wheelchair. And while I would do a curbside order, and we would still share that same meal, even if it was at home. But in my heart, she says, I always carried the memory of that kind person who had no idea how important that gift of love was on that particular day. When we do a kind deed, we never know whose lives we will touch. And so we were talking, and in fact, yesterday I talked about, being able to see the people that we come into contact with and to see their needs and try to meet their needs. But sometimes a simple act of love touches a life where we don't even know what's going on in that person's life. The need is not obvious. Seeing a couple out for an anniversary dinner together, whoever did that kind thing, that loving thing, had no idea, what this couple was facing and what this husband would ultimately be facing in the years to come. And so that's another aspect to it. By loving others, we are sometimes reaching out into situations where we don't even know the full impact of what it is that we're doing. And so I think I talked about this, but I love the way somebody wrote it once, that the question is not who is my neighbor. And of course, that's the whole thing with the parable of the Good Samaritan. But am I a neighbor? The question isn't who is my neighbor, but am I a neighbor? In other words, the burden of proof does not lie with another as to whether or not he or she is my neighbor in order to qualify somehow for my love. The question is, am I a neighbor to any and all, especially to those who are in need? In his book, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Do not waste your time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did." And as soon as we do this, we find one of the great secrets. When you're behaving as if you loved someone, you will presently come to love them. If you injure someone you dislike, you will find yourself disliking him more. If you do him a good turn, you will find yourself disliking him less. And finally, I wanted to wrap up this week with this final quote that I came across, which is so important, so critical, so powerful. It's simply this: you will find as you look back on your life that the moments when you have really lived are the moments when you have done things in the spirit of love. You will find as you look back upon your life that the moments when you've really lived are the moments when you've done things in the spirit of love. Well, that's it for this week, and it's not the final word on love. I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but that's it for this week at least. Hope you have a great day. Hope you can join us for worship tomorrow, 9 and 11. And of course, live stream at the second service. We're still waiting for Josh to get back in the saddle, so to speak, and so we're just live streaming the later service. But hope you could join us for either one of those, or tune in to the recording of the 11 o'clock service during the week. It's a special Sunday. It's First Communion at the late service, so you might want to either join us or tune in for that one especially. And I'll be back with you, God willing, on Tuesday. Until then, take care. Bye.